Pope Francis on yesterday, May 11th. Well, I really don't get the feeling that Pope Francis is like Donald Trump. I really don't see him with a smartphone in his cassock or whatever. I could be wrong, maybe. But so somebody in his office probably tweeted the following. I would like to remind you that on 14 May, believers of every religion are invited to unite themselves spiritually in a day of prayer, fasting, and works of charity to implore God to help humanity overcome the coronavirus. Hashtag pandemic, hashtag human fraternity, hashtag pray together. And so what catches your attention, I mean, not with Pope Francis, it's just exactly what you'd expect from Pope Francis. But so on Thursday then, believers of every religion are invited to unite themselves spiritually in a day of prayer. Now, one of the problems in reading papal stuff is that it's almost always a translation. And so if it ends up sounding completely strange in English, it's really easy to say, well, it was originally in the Pope's mother tongue, or it was written in Latin, or whatever. But this is a little unclear. But it seems that what the Pope is saying is that you have believers in every religion. And he has said that. He has made statements that I personally believe many previous popes would have found to be completely heretical. Just completely heretical. And it sounds like he's saying that these believers of every religion are invited to unite themselves, that is, across the boundaries of these faiths, spiritually in a day of prayer, fasting, and works of charity to implore God to help humanity overcome the coronavirus. So you are able to implore God to help humanity by doing works of charity. So you do stuff to try to, convince God to help more than he's helping at the moment type of situation. Obviously, the Pope has a very ecumenical perspective and a very ecumenical view of differing religions. And in light of statements that he has made, it really strikes many of us that it's a regular drumbeat that he is a universalist. Everyone's going to be saved. That's why you don't need to proselytize anyone. They're going to be just fine as long as they're believers in something. Or, then you got the atheist guy. He wasn't a believer in anything, but he baptized his kids. So that's, I guess, maybe a act of work of charity or something. I don't know. But whenever you have a movement toward universalism in any form, you end up with a diminishment of the centrality of Christ in every place where universalism is being confessed. So, in this realm, you have the Pope confessing universalism in such a fashion that you don't need to have Jesus to engage in meaningful prayer. So you can approach God, and you can approach God spiritually with fasting and works of charity to implore him to help humanity overcome the coronavirus. And you can do that outside of the one that he raised from the dead. And evidently, while rejecting the one that he raised from the dead and has set forth as the one who is mediator between God and men. Now, if you've never been a universalist, you've never been an inclusivist, never been just a wild-eyed leftist liberal, then you probably are not, you're probably sitting there going, these people don't even read the Bible, do they? I mean, they do, and they come up with other ways of understanding things. And so, in an inclusivist mindset, any act in integrity made toward any object of belief. So believers of every religion, now there are religions out there that don't even have a personal God. There are religions out there that have multitudes of gods. There's religions out there that basically make you a god, but hey, we all can do it. But the idea is that as long as your intention is right, that you can reject Jesus, but you're still believing in Jesus. Because as long as you have any type of faith in the concept of a deity, this is faith in Jesus. So that's how they get around this concept, is they'll say on the one hand, as a Christian inclusivist, yes, Jesus is necessary, but you don't have to know who he is. Ever since the cross, I remember just last week, we read his own words. Jesus died for everyone, unbelievers, believers, everyone. He has justified everyone. So you have not only a universal atonement, but you have a universal application. And basically, it sounds like his idea is that the atonement is universal and has an element of substitution to it. And therefore, if that's the case, there is no need for personal faith. It's better if you do, but it's not absolutely necessary. So if you actually believe that, then this makes perfect sense. Believers of every religion have full access to God, and you can say they have full access to God through Jesus, but they just don't have to know who he is. So that whole Great Commission thing and all that, that's just, if you really want to really get into it. But you can unite with all of the believers of every religion spiritually in a day of prayer, fasting, and works of charity to implore God to help humanity overcome the coronavirus. Because he can help us, but he needs to be convinced to do so, evidently.